welcome to Dynasty Lifestyle Podcast. We have our man, Danny An Khoi Vu here, who is obviously part of the Dynasty team. And he came all the way from Montreal and came over to Toronto just for this podcast. No, I'm kidding. But he's here. He's actually in person in the studio today.
The luxurious studio.
Yeah, absolutely. Super high tech, $5,000 microphones and stuff like that. I'm kidding. It's more like $100 microphone, but it's all good. So he's in here, and finally, actually, for the first time in our podcast, we have a jiu-jitsu guy. Yeah. So for the longest time, for the last couple of episodes, we've been talking about kung fu, we've been talking about karate, taekwondo, all that kind of stuff. We talked a little bit about MMA, not a whole lot about jiu-jitsu. So we have a jiu-jitsu expert in the house.
That's a very strong word, but we'll take it.
No, absolutely. I mean, at least compared to me, you're the expert. I'm not an expert in jiu-jitsu. So without further delay, let's have Danny An Khoi Vu come in here and just take a moment to tell us who you are, what do you do, where you come from, everything, all that. Just go ahead. It's your zone.
Yeah, so we're talking about if I'm a jiu-jitsu guy for sure. I'm definitely, my main art is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I guess I've been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on and off for at least 10 years. I'm a purple belt under Koji Murakami, which is BJJ Revolution team in Montreal. People might be more familiar with him as being a black belt under Julio Foca Fernandez. Back in the day, like when Revolution was tearing shit up, like in like the competition team in the US, like US Nationals, that kind of stuff. But basically, it's Carlson Gracie, not Carlson Gracie Jr. Though we have had him over for seminars, that kind of stuff. But the lineage is Carlson Gracie. So Carlson Gracie is, I guess, the version of jiu-jitsu that is not very sport in the sense that it's not a lot of guard play, that kind of stuff. Though every school changes and you have different styles for each fighter or artist. But in Carlson Gracie, it's, top control, guard pass, submission, that kind of thing. Like, because Carlson Gracie was all about, would it work in Vale Tudo, which is the precursor to MMA. Depending on how familiar your audience is, Vale Tudo is what it was in Brazil before MMA. And it was
bare knuckle.
Yeah, bare knuckle, synonymous with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Right. And that's how like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Luta Libre, and like all that, basically challenge all like the other arts, and honestly did really well because nobody knew ground grappling submission. So you might take them to the ground, but they could submit you. You might knock them out, but they would just, do like really like, I kind of call it like butchered takedowns because they would just like close that distance. So like, I'm sure like you speak about this, like, when me and Danny, we spar, like obviously we don't spar a lot because we're in different cities, but he lights me up standing up. Like it's not even a question. Like, but the thing is, like, if I close the distance, it's a pretty huge problem for Danny. Even if I don't submit him right away, I'll probably gas him out pretty fast. And you're talking about somebody who's like a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So that's kind of like, I guess, like the lineage of like what like my Jiu-Jitsu is. But to be honest, today, like Koji is like pure self-defense. Like his specialty was self-defense Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu before he came to Montreal and like opened his own school. And I remember when I first started under him in 2007, 2008, like there would be 2-3 classes of Vale Tudo. Like, like Pride FC days.
Wow.
So it was like, straight up like, the crow crop drills, like ground and pound, like the kind of like, okay, like you can't see me, but I'm with Danny now. I'm putting the hand in front and I'm just like, okay, the distance is here. All right, I'm going to close it and take him down.
Right.
So if people have seen proto MMA, like, like the early days, you'll see guys with, oh shit, they're striking like terrible. But the thing is, people didn't understand that back then, like today, like a person who's like in MMA is super athletic, is very well versed in ground defense, submission, and all that kind of stuff. But back then, even if you knew a bit of jiu-jitsu, it's kind of like the experience with me and Danny. It's like Danny's a good, like a decent blue belt, but it's not the same thing when you're like like higher level. So that's kind of like the perspective people have to understand. So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for sport application, obviously is the most popular version of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I think that's like for every sport.
Right.
Like every sport starts out hardcore,
right.
and as soon as it gentrifies in the sense that it becomes more mature, it becomes more popular, and the allure of gentrified money, like, you know, comes into it, that's when things change, because you got kids programs, you got, you know, all that kind of stuff.
So is your style sport jiu-jitsu then?
I'd say like the lineage is not sport jiu-jitsu, but I'd say definitely like the application in mat time is definitely sport jiu-jitsu. Like, can I out grapple people like when I spar MMA? Yes, but it's only because my level is so much higher in jiu-jitsu. But if I went against like a guy, like let's say from TriStar, I'd have like terrible problems. Like, you know, like just an amateur MMA fighter, because if they know, you know, enough of the basics, it's very hard, because grappling is not the same thing as MMA grappling. As you know, Danny, as you know, striking is not the same thing as MMA striking. Just it's the same thing as like boxing versus Muay Thai distance. So it's that kind of difference also. And especially the divide also between, when you're talking about sport jiu-jitsu, you got IBJJF gi, which is like, you know, you're not allowed reaping, you're not allowed like heel hooks, you're not allowed like a bunch of stuff, versus sub only, which you're allowed everything, and is no gi most of the time, or EBI rules, where, you know, at the end you have overtime, so you might have a different strategy. You know, the sport, as it grows, as it becomes more popular, the more specialization there is. So
yeah, you get like a bunch of guys who just train heel hooks, just train foot locks, that type of thing, and then they go like deep into it, you know, Danaher, death squat, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I guess for our viewers, for our listeners, maybe we can even just back it up even more, and maybe tell us, like, were you born here in Canada actually?
Yeah, so I'm Vietnamese descent. My parents came over in '82, so I was born in Canada, like in Montreal. So I'm like trilingual with Vietnamese, but obviously it's French and English, the main languages in Montreal.
Cool.
So obviously,
how was it like growing up? Growing up in a good part of neighborhood, bad part of neighborhood?
Well, like to be honest, like I would say, like I grew up like as a kid, like you know, like before elementary, like I was like in kind of like what's the plateau, but back then the plateau wasn't as gentrified as it is now. For your Toronto listeners, like the plateau is kind of like the annex, like kind of like it's today it's very gentrified, like you know, it's old houses, but it's worth a lot of money, but it's cramped, it's small, it's old, but so we grew up there. Like, as I don't remember much of that time. Like, I remember happy things, which like it's cool. Then for elementary, we moved to Hunsik, which is a very nice neighborhood in the sense like it's nicely residential, and basically, how could I say this? It's a very friendly neighborhood, you know, like it's kind of like the suburbs but in the city. Like even now people want to move there because it's like more affordable, but it's like next to the metro, like so it's super close to distance. Like in Toronto, people don't understand because your public transport system is like the worst I've ever seen in a major city. But in Montreal, like you can be really, really far in the outskirts and be in downtown within half an hour on the metro line, and it runs every 5 minutes. And sometimes even 2 minutes in you know traffic time, and you know like that runs until like 1 or 2 a.m. So like you know it's very accessible. Like I really never, like I have a car now, but even now like I feel like I should just be taking the metro, you know, because
it's not like that here. That's why when you ask me, it's like, oh yeah, you drive, you're a baller or whatever. No, it's because it's because the local transportation here in Toronto is garbage. Anybody who lives in Toronto knows the local transportation is so bad you never want to take it, right? Bus, you never want to take it. Subway, horrible, never reliable, never on time. You know, old. So it's shitty. So in Toronto, the best way to just do it is just to drive. But even if you drive, you're not going to escape you know, the traffic, which is probably one of the worst. I would say worst designed, you know, highways anywhere in North America, I would say. So when you were a kid, were you like a super high energy kid, and like did you like how was the social interaction? Like, was it like everybody treated you nice, or like people bullied you, or did you bully others? Like, what is it?
So to be completely honest, I was always high energy, but I also was very like I don't want to say intellectual, but I'd say like a very curious. So like I love to read. Like I had glasses. I was Asian, that kind of stuff. And my school was predominantly like elementary was white. There was some ethnicities, but obviously like the coolest people were like the white people.
Okay.
I never really had a problem with bullying in the sense like, you know, I was never bullied myself in a sense like on a actual real basis, but definitely like I wasn't like on the top rung of the social ladder when it comes to elementary. And you know, I don't know, it's like survival instincts or whatever, but yeah, like obviously.
Was it because you were really like slick? Was it like you were good with your words? Like, what is it? Because it's interesting you bring that up right now, because in the last couple episodes we had a couple guys come in, you know, myself, whatever, Kai, a couple other guys, and we all actually talked about how we started martial arts, and how we started martial arts was actually intertwined with how we were treated as kids. And there was a similar pattern. It's like all of us kind of faced bullying in some way. Some more severe than others. Some were like racially motivated. Some were like politically motivated. And some were just, you know, kind of like generic schoolyard kind of style. So it's actually interesting you bring it up, because you're saying now that you actually have not faced that. So why don't you like tell us?
Well, because the thing is like, also I'm like a pretty laid back person. So look, like the racial bullying, like that's like just normal. Like I don't think like anybody who's of different ethnicity, especially, you know, we're way more diverse now than we were before.
Was it because you were in French Canada though? Does that make a difference?
No, definitely French Canadians like to like I love Quebec, like in a sense like I love Montreal, like everything. But let's not kid ourselves, like the racial like diversity, like sensitivity is not better than, you know, English Canada. So if it's more the fact that you know, like it's just, I was high energy and I just kind of like didn't really care. And also I was always young at heart in a sense. I always acted younger in the sense like what made me tick was always either books or like anime or like well, mangas, whatever it was back then you know, whatever was going on that then in elementary. So I never had like that real like urge to do any martial arts. I did judo like for a long time just because my parents put me into it. But
was that your first martial art?
Yeah. But I'm much more of an athlete than a martial art in the sense like I played. Honestly, if you name like any random sport, I probably tried it at least. And you know, I've done like everything, like baseball, hockey, ice, like real ice hockey, like cricket, rugby, basketball. I was on a school basketball team, like, you know, like I played soccer for city. Like I've done.
So you're the jock.
Well,
but then you're also the nerd.
Yeah. Well, because the thing is like this is really funny. So that's the thing. Like the other thing about survival instincts. So I was always like a smart kid, like in a sense, like, you know, I was smart. But once you get to high school, that's where like, you know, like the real difference shows. And also where like what was kind of like whatever in elementary, in high school, it's like completely different. So in elementary, like honestly, I was never much into fashion until like, you know, Sec 2, like, so like I guess like grade 8 or 9. Because it's like, who cares? Like I just like train, like, you know, always like doing sports and whatever, until it became like a social requirement. And like definitely, like I remember like I first came into high school, like that was the thing that I noticed. I was like, oh shit, these people are like pretty serious about like, you know, brands and whatever. And I was like, what the fuck is a brand? Like to be honest, like I didn't even know the difference. And also, all of a sudden, like there was a clear like pecking order, because in elementary there is a pecking order, but who cares? Because like it doesn't matter, because you're only like 30 odd students, and like at the end of the day you're all friends, like even if you don't like you might not get invited to all things, but at the end of the day the big things, like you got really, like it was fun.
Like elementary school is just, they're all kids, right? So
I'll give you an example, like, you know, at like, you know, like easy, like, you know, stuff like during like elementary school, like the dances, like you know, I had a lot of fun. I had fun dancing and that stuff. So like to give you an example, like I never had that problem socializing in that point. But once you enter high school, it was a completely different thing. And I was in Montreal North, which is like where I went to high school, which is a more like, let's just say, it's not a terrible neighborhood, but it's not the nicest, in the sense like there's some areas that are not as nice, but there's some areas, you know, like the houses are worth like really a lot. So, you know, that's like the kind of influences. Also, I think that's when you start having the teenage rebellion and that kind of stuff. And I think like if we're gonna go, you know, like why like I wasn't like bullied as much is because if they bullied me, they were my enemy. In a sense, like I didn't take it lying down. Like I might take it like a piece of shit, like in a sense, like, you know, like I'd be like, you know, angry to the point of tears and whatever, but I wouldn't just accept it. I would like scream back. I'd be like, you know, whatever. So that's like how it was. Like I think like the first few like years like in high school, in the sense like if I was challenged, I would still be like, you know, like pushing.
Would you like burst like? Would you like basically like fight back like instantly, and then you let people know like, hey, like stop messing with me or some shit like right in the beginning?
Yeah, I'd say like even like I just be, but the thing is like also like I'd just be like, because I would go from 1 to 100. Like I didn't know how to fight, but I'd just be like, okay, like let's go fight. Like, like kind of that like short fuse, because I was just so angry.
Yeah.
And the other thing that started to really bother me, like, and it started to really manifest, is like the whole like Asian guy like not being attractive to girls. Like that wasn't a problem in elementary, like but then all of a sudden like it became like an issue, especially in a predominantly white with there were minorities but mostly white, and then you definitely feel that like, oh, what the hell, like, you know, what's going on. And it's funny because like, you know, it's like people think that like the whole like it's a confidence thing. They think it's like, you know, like it's just like, oh, some people are attractive, some people are not. It honestly, it really is a social construct, because the thing is like the racial thing, like I said, like the stupid, you know, it seems harmless, but the whole like, you know, ching chong, like that kind of stuff, like that's just like constant, like all the time, like all the time, you know. And you're just like, whatever, it is what it is, like, because you make a big deal out of it all the time, it's just like annoying. But my point is
it makes it worse for you, so you'd rather, you know, just be like, whatever.
But that's the thing, like that's when it started fueling into like the whole like I wouldn't say self-destructive, but definitely like where I was like, I took like a darker turn where it's like, you know, like I was like, okay, well, if people are gonna fuck with me, I'm gonna fuck with them too. Like, you know, like I wasn't like, oh, like I was a nice guy, but I wasn't afraid to be like an asshole too. And I think that's what people don't understand, is that when you're different, like you're automatically, you feel it all the time. Like from everything. Like something that, I'll give you an example. Like one reason, like back then, why I was super attracted, like starting watching HK films, like was like, oh shit, like finally the fucking guy who's getting the girls, and like, you know, who's like the matter. Yeah, it's like who, you know, like, you know, Lau Takwa and like, you know, all those guys, like finally, okay.
Oh, Andy Lau,
yeah. It's like, okay, like finally, like these guys, like they're like the heroes.
Because that's normal.
Yeah, it's
like
normal.
in Asian society or in Chinese society, it's normal. It's not like, oh, yeah, you're an Asian guy in a North American, you know, American film context. All of a sudden, like
you're the sidekick,
you're like the sidekick, or you're the villain the whole fucking time, or you're like laughing.
Jackie Chan.
Yeah, you're like the object where people laugh at you. So yeah,
because that's the thing. Because people think like, oh, like they're laughing, so they're laughing with you, and it is, they are laughing with you, but they're also laughing at you.
Yeah.
And it's pretty funny because there was this I had a Spanish teacher just like way later, but like in like sec 4, she was like, oh, you know, like you're the class clown, like that kind of shit, like you know, because I wasn't getting good grades, and he's like, you're super smart, like I know, like you think like this is fun, whatever, but they're not laughing with you, they're laughing mostly at you, because like they're not really your friends. Like in the end of the day, like, you know, everything, like friends will come and go, which I think everybody knows, like in that kind of context. But like your grades and like that path you're on, that's permanent if you don't get your shit together. And
wow, some smart ass wisdom, man.
Yeah,
from that teacher.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, you know,
in high school,
and
see, nobody ever like told me that shit in high school. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
they just told you lies. Or they just didn't care.
Yeah.
Like most teachers just don't care. Like it's very rare to meet a teacher that's like, hey, I actually care about you. I'm gonna tell you some real shit.
And the things like at the time I was like, she's like whatever, you know. But the things like now you're older, you realize, fuck man, she really knew she was talking about. And so look, for me, like when I was younger, I got in a lot of trouble. Like I started being unfocused at school. Like I was good in the subjects I liked, but you know, like the most important things were girls, impressing like the posse and all that. All that peer pressure, like definitely was very present everywhere. Like, you know, in a sense, like you had your Asian friends who you had to be Asian with, and you had your white friends who you're trying to be like yourself, but you don't know who yourself is. Because that's the biggest thing. Is like I'm Vietnamese, but I'm not really Vietnamese because I was born here. I don't come from Vietnam. Like my whole social circle isn't Vietnamese because I mean, we're in Canada. Like, it's
Yeah.
completely different.
Yeah.
So it's very destabilizing not to have that nexus around you. And your family, and I'm lucky my family is super supportive, but they can't understand what you're going to. Because they never, like, imagine all the hormones, all that shit is going down, like,
Yeah.
when you're I guess like a kid
Yeah.
or like a teenager, and
Yeah.
so that happened. So honestly, like I was like all into kind of bad shit, like like the usual Asian like drama, like.
Well, like, elaborate. Like, is it like too private? We can't get into it.
Well, it's like, I guess it's the past, so it doesn't really matter.
Right.
But it's like, like the minor gang banging, like that kind of shit, like like the posse, like that, like because the things like you're looking for a tribe, you're looking for your own, identity because
Sure.
you don't have a reference point because you're just not normal. So you want to have loyalty. You want to have people to be your brothers. Like it's not a coincidence. Like like organized crime, triad, mafia, Hell's Angels. It's all about giving people without like identities or direction something to hang on because we're tribal people. We want to have something to
Sure.
we want to have a crew that's gonna ride with us until we die.
Sure.
But the problem is like in Western society, they've deconstructed like the nuclear family so much, and especially and the problem for ethnicities is like they're just, if you're not in an area with all same ethnicity, it's really hard to connect, especially when you're young because you don't know where they are, right? Like today, maybe with social media, it's a bit easier, but when me and you were growing up, it's like if you didn't meet them at wherever you knew, like you just didn't know those people existed.
Luckily enough, and I told listeners this and in the previous episodes. Luckily, I grew up in a predominantly Chinese neighborhood. Asian neighborhood, so the impact for kind of like, oh, what is my identity like, and those kind of conflicts were not as harsh to me. I had a clearer idea of who I was. I was surrounded by people who were like me, so the impact wasn't so great, and obviously there were still people being bad to you and whatever, right? But you just deal with it like anybody deals with it. So I guess from what you were saying, so you kind of took like a negative turn to it. That's how you kind of dealt with it, and then
it's anger, man. You that rage, like that,
right?
Like, you have that
and then
angst.
You channeled it from that point. And then, so what happened next? Did it like take a turn for the worse? Did it take a turn for the better?
Well, it's like it never got too dramatic. Like it definitely could have. I was very lucky it didn't get to a harsher turn. But it's basically like like my parents were like, yo, like come on, like let's get your act together. Like how much like we worked hard for you to have a good life, And so for me, like high school, it was just like, it's funny because high school was like the harshest, like how I felt like I had a good time, but it was just like. It wasn't where I wanted to be. But in Quebec, there's something called CEGEP. It's a 2-year program in between high school and university. And I applied for this super posh, like, private CEGEP in liberal arts, which is, like, my favorite subjects. Like, history, like, English, like, literature, all that stuff. And when I was there, honestly, I was like, yo, all these people are super different than me. Like, they're rich, they're poor, whatever. A lot of rich people, a lot of, like, from privileged background. But I didn't get anything near like the kind of racism like I got like back when I was in high school because they were just used to having so much diversity and in that context like it was like the 2 best years of my life because school was really fun because I just did what I liked versus like what I was forced to do like I didn't like math, all that kind of stuff,
right.
So there like I got to play like even more sports, like hang out and like shoot the shit and meet people from so many different backgrounds because people talk about privilege. Like being poor or middle class and never meeting people from other backgrounds that are rich too, that's also something you don't understand. Like everybody has their struggle. Like don't get me wrong, like some struggles are easier with money, but honestly I can definitely say money helps a lot, but it doesn't solve everything.
Right.
And honestly, like a lot of these people, like they're great people and they had like, even though they were rich, they had some serious baggage that even like I could never imagine like having, because like
poor people problems and rich people problems.
Yeah.
And then sometimes rich people problems are more fucked up than poor people
problems.
problems.
Because I'll give you an example, like, man, like, just imagine, like, you're going to fucking boarding school, man.
Yeah.
Like, you see your parents, like, a couple of times per year.
Yeah.
Like, you're a stranger to your own parents, right?
Yeah.
So imagine how you're a stranger to your own parents when you're always there. They're fucking over your shoulder, annoying you left and right.
Right.
So just imagine that kind of fucking impact on an emotional level. So that's just, like, a simple, and there's way more crazy shit than that. Like, you know, because with money and with access, you can go, like, freaking to the next level in your excesses and in your vices. So, yeah. So that's, like, the kind of thing I noticed, and I felt like, okay, I was more cognizant of, like, how, like, you know, money doesn't solve everything, and not only that, it's like you have to understand that everybody has their own cross to bear. Like, you know, I talked about how hard it is as an immigrant, right? But I'll give you an example. Like, imagine how intense it must be. Like, I'll give you Toronto. Well, let's say you're white and you're English, whatever, and now fucking Toronto is like fucking, you know, like there's no white people left, or the you know, like okay. all the white people are like in Peterborough, or like they moved to fucking Stratford, Whitby.
Okay, sure.
Like
bickering.
Yo, man, that's like a huge like culture shock too, man. Right. So like that's the thing. Like we all have our shit, you know. Like it's, don't get me wrong, like
there's so many Chinese people in Vancouver that
exactly.
You know, a lot of people are, I guess, angry at the, you know, all the Chinese immigrants coming in, right? So, you know, there's resentment there.
And it's a culture thing too. I mean, an example, like, man, people come and they just don't adapt to like Canadian culture, and they bring their own culture, and that's something legit too. It's like, you know, like it is like a country that's like, you know, bringing you in, like you should at least try, right? I'll give you an example, like this is like nothing against Chinese people, but I'll give you an example, like a lot of mainlanders, like they don't understand the concept of like lines and you know that kind of like just social and it's just like, man, like it's super rude to people who are used to that. Yeah. So they're
it's interesting because you know, let's take a minute to go into this real quick because this is relevant actually. So, you know, mainland Chinese people are different in the sense like than say, like, let's say, you know, Vietnamese Americans or Chinese Americans or Asian Americans or Korean Americans or Japanese Americans, in the sense that because, you know, the people that are you know, have been here for 10 years or 20 years or 30 years or longer, whatever, you know, they were given the chance to assimilate a little bit, to learn sort of you know, the Western culture a little bit more, maybe the Western etiquette a little bit more. So they understand, you know, there's certain, you know, rules, or there's certain like etiquette, that kind of thing. And then the mainland Chinese, there's a big disconnect. So like all of a sudden, in the last, you know, 10, 20 years or so, mainland Chinese all of a sudden got super rich, right? So now they are, you know, traveling everywhere. They're going to these places for the first time. They're seeing these places for the first time. They're immigrating to Canada. They're immigrating to whatever, the States, all this kind of stuff. But what they're really doing is they're bringing along, like, they literally just come straight from the farm. So that's really all they knew. So it's like if you went to any hick place, you know, in like America, you know, somewhere in the bushes somewhere. So they would act like those kinds of people. And imagine if those, you know, people that were just dirt poor 5 years ago, all of a sudden, okay, you're a billionaire now. Like, what are you going to do? And he's going to be like, oh, shit, I'm going to buy all the bags. I'm going to buy all the cars. And you know what I mean? Like, basically act wild. So that's kind of how the culture is right now. So just for anybody, you know, who's confused and they don't understand, that's kind of how it is right now. But, you know, in defense of that, I would say every population has gone through this. You know, I'm sure, like, people, like English people, like British people,
yeah, for sure, like
they've gone through their, you know, phase where, like, okay, now you're poor and all of a sudden you're rich. So then there's all that. Everybody goes through that phase. So it just so happens that, you know, the large portion of the Chinese population is going through that phase right now, and they're everywhere, and you see that it's prevalent, and it is an issue, it is a problem, and going back to assimilation, yeah, I mean it's culture shock. It is a different change, but you know, it's inevitable as well.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, you know, assimilation doesn't mean you have to give up your culture, but it's like kind of have, like, you know, that social contract to be, you know what, we're gonna all respect each other, so we can live the life the way we want without bothering each other. And I think like that's like the biggest challenge for in so many spheres, right?
Right. Another thing actually is interesting to break down. I can kind of see why mainland Chinese, or at least immigrant Chinese, or whatever, if you want to say Asians, they have more of a problem assimilating. I think it's one of the reasons that contributes to it is because Asian communities are actually very self-sustained.
Correct.
So they're able to sustain themselves without actually communicating with anybody, and that's almost like a positive thing. Like you look at it from their perspective. From their perspective, like their ability to sustain their own community, to provide the services back to their own community. They don't have to rely on the government. They don't have to rely on other groups. It's almost like, holy crap, like these guys can take care of themselves. So in that way, it's kind of like, holy shit, you guys are doing, you guys have an advantage. And then the bad thing to it is, from the outsiders looking in, it's like, it's really like, inclusive with themselves. They're not really wanting to mingle with anybody else. And, that's just kind of how it is. And I also argue, it's a big language difference. I would say if you're like a French or an English person coming in over to North America, at least some of the language, crosses over. If you speak Spanish, there's certain things that cross over. It's easy for you to, adapt to English or whatever it is, right? Because you're so close to each other. Your European neighbors and stuff like that, and just linguistics, it's similar. You got similar words, things like that. So it's easier to pick up. But if you take an Asian language, whatever it is completely freaking different.
It's completely
180 degrees, and you can't expect these Asian immigrants that are like 30 years or older who are coming through, or even 50 years and older, and they're coming through and for the first time, and then they have children here, or they bring their own children here, whatever. Like they live their whole life in an Asian country. That's the only thing they know. You can't expect them to learn English and just drop everything, because it's like, whoa, it's like a completely different language to me. Like I'm just gonna bury myself in this Chinese community and I'm good. I don't have to learn English, and that's just kind of how it is.
Yeah, so that's like the biggest challenge, I think, like for especially Canada, as it is a nation of immigrants. And don't get me wrong, like every immigrant group that comes through, they eventually assimilate, and then they're like, oh, these new immigrants can't assimilate. It's always been like that. It's always gonna be like that.
Yeah.
And so I think like that's like the just to go back, like if you look at that, everybody has their own challenges. And I don't think, because I hear a lot like these days talking about white privilege and all that stuff. Like, look, man, yeah, okay, I guess it exists, white privilege, because guess what, most white people, they have the same fucking problems you do. And like they probably have like the same worries, the same, you know what I mean, like like most white people, they're all middle class, like in Canada, like like it's I feel that like there's a lot of echo chamber where it's like, oh, the reason I can't get ahead is because XYZ.
Right.
But guess what? It's always been XYZ for everyone in a certain degree.
Right.
Unless you were part of that 1%, like whatever. So it's just,
I would say, it's like 50-50, which is, I don't disagree with what you're saying. At the same time, I think there's a baseline sort of passive privilege. Like, I don't want to say like, oh, yes, this group benefits aggressively because of this, and this. I don't think that's true, and I agree with you on that. But I think there's a baseline passive privilege that you can't just ignore. It's like, it's kind of there. So I don't know if you heard of this one, and I'm sure if I told you, you'd be like, oh, I wouldn't be surprised. But there was a study that came out recently. I don't have the link to it right now, but I could link it to you guys if you want. You just send me a message. But there was a study that came out of Canada recently, very recently, like last month, where they did a bunch of studies, and they said anybody without a Caucasian name on resumes, specifically if your name was Asian, you actually get like what? There's a number attached to it. I don't know what that number is, but you get like a significant number, like 60-70% less callbacks on your resume. So you can't just go and ignore that statistic and be like, okay, yeah, white privilege doesn't exist. Well, of course it does, because if you change your name to a white sounding name, you're just gonna blend in more. They're gonna be like, okay, we can accept you more, right? We don't feel so, it's really not so much as racism. It's more just like, hey, can we work with this guy? Can we,
but honestly,
build a team with this guy? I feel more comfortable hiring, Michael Johnson than I want to hire,
Michael Chen.
Jabir, Kareem,
Yeah.
Abdul Jabbar. I don't know. Figure out some kind of name that I can't pronounce, I can't relate to. It's just human nature. I'd rather hire some guy that I could pronounce his name. I could feel like I could communicate with him. I feel like I could relate with him. Maybe he grew up in the same country, or maybe he grew up in the same city as I came to. I could maybe talk about football with him. But if he's like completely foreign to me, and I feel like it's a high barrier where it's like I'm a manager and I just want to manage my team well, and I pick a guy that's too different, it's like, why go through the trouble? And I've read studies about this, right? So I'm not just talking out of my ass. So I've read certain studies on how managers manage teams. What is the psychology behind that? It's not so much that they judge people by the skin. It's just, hey, if I am upper management and I am like a white male, for example, naturally I'm going to incline to hiring other white males just because I feel comfortable with them. And that's really what it is. So I don't blame them or anything, but at the same time, based on statistics, we can't say there's no privilege at all.
But those stats is because also it's demographics, and we had the same studies in Quebec, except they did it with Muslim names. So all of that.
That's probably worse.
But no, but it's just it is what it is. Because,
Yeah.
Like you said, it's I don't know if it's blatant racism or like you said. I think people just want to be comfortable with X, Y, Z, and they're more familiar with the culture they're with, right? And I think that's just a demographics thing, because I'll give you an example. The perfect example is women, okay? Women in the workforce before, it was very hard to integrate, in the sense they had to do their own struggle. But now in most professional fields, 70% of the field is women. In accounting, in law, in med school, in a bunch of stuff. Maybe I think the only one that's not majority women is engineering. So just by the demographics by themselves, and I see it in my work, the management and upper management, it's becoming at least 50-50 women. And it's going to be more than that, because the only candidates are women because they're better in school. They got their stuff together. And honestly, when you go into recruitment and you just do blind study, most of the people who are the most qualified are women, on a higher percentage. It's just pure numbers. And I feel that it's in diverse places. Look, I'm not saying that's going to be solved tomorrow, everything. But in Toronto, in Montreal, when it's going to be more and more diverse, to give an example, at law firms and all that stuff, in Toronto, there's a lot of ethnic partners.
Sure.
It's just because the demographics have made it guess what? You want good people? It's not going to be just Mr. Johnson, because the pool has changed. And that will force, I think, the whole problem of white privilege. And don't worry, maybe we'll have Chinese privilege.
Yeah.
Because there's too many Chinese people in Toronto.
Oh yeah. Well, there's definitely certain circles.
Oh, I'll give you an example. If they did a study in Vancouver,
right?
Okay, let's see what would that be? Would it be still white? Because it's demographics,
right?
And I'll give you an example. If we go into other countries, if we did the diversity kind of studies in those countries, right, I'm pretty sure there wouldn't be that much minorities that it would have this. I think it's you're right. It is latent. I think it is a problem in a sense that it does exist, but I think also we should try to understand that it's also part of human nature.
Well, yeah,
and you
don't ever blame it. You know what I mean? I'm not saying let's blame it and be let's not do anything about it. No, obviously you yourself, you have to be self-sufficient too. You can't just be because the government is like this, or because this person didn't hire me, that's why I didn't get the same, chances. But I mean, that's not true, right? If you empower yourself, if you go out and learn and you put those things, towards your own whatever studies and whatever skill sets, then you'll be able to find your way through, right? But anyways, run it back. Is where I know me and you I think we get into these areas where we could just really talk and we go super far. Go back to so were you training this whole time while you were gangbanging and all this type of stuff?
Nah, man.
So you went to the program, to the special program,
and then it was there's
what happened then?
So basically once I got to the program, that was done, all the crazy shit. I was wild, I love to party and that kind of stuff, but all the bad stuff, like I didn't feel a need for it anymore. Like that frustration went away because it's just like, yo, life is good, you know, like it's really fun.
Right.
So I actually wasn't training, I was just doing sports.
Yeah.
I would, you know, like I did boxing, I was younger, like, you know, like during the summer or like during like X amount of time with my buddies, but I never took it seriously because it's just like, man, sports were more fun. And I'm a very social guy, so I love like the team part of it, you know?
Right.
Like, man, like I just love like being part of a team and like, you know, cracking, like shooting a shit. And I think that's why I love BJJ so much with the competition team and like, you know, the competition circuit is like that opportunity to be kind of like in a locker room, but all the time. And especially with social media, it has that whole jiu-jitsu lifestyle, whatever. So actually, I didn't start training like until I got into like university. And even then, it was kind of like whatever. Like I was in university.
You would have been like what, 19, 20 by then?
Yeah, exactly, man. Like I never really trained seriously at all. But the thing is, like, what really helped me is like I was definitely an athlete. Like, that's always been like I've been always very active, and that's the thing. Like I'll do crazy shit. Like I got super into like dragon boating. Like crazy, and like I was like really good at it. And then like I got super into like tennis, like at a certain time in my life. So I'll get into like these phases where like I'm willing to explore and like just go all deep.
So I guess the question would be then, what made you fall in love with like you know, jiu-jitsu? Because since that seems like the main thing that you've stuck with now.
So that's the thing. Like I always love pro wrestling. Like WWE, like, you know. Like not the ruthless aggression era, though that was all right. It was like the attitude era, right?
Yeah, attitude.
Like WCW. Like I was loving it. Like, you know, I thought like, man, if my life could be like that, that'd be like the dream. So basically, like that's
why you're coming out with the Mysterio masks and shit.
Yeah, exactly. That's a Pentagon Junior mask, Lucha Underground, holla.
Oh shit.
So basically, I was always into like pro wrestling,
right?
And pro wrestling because of like Pride, which had all like those entrances.
Right.
That's how I got into it. In MMA, I didn't even know what UFC. Like I knew what UFC was. Like I saw the video store like everybody else.
Right.
But that's the thing. It's like I think it's like the other thing like people have to understand, and like martial arts artists have to understand.
Right.
Like, oh, you're good at fighting. Nobody cares.
Right.
Okay. Nobody gives a fuck. Like honestly, in the sense like, oh, okay, you could defend yourself. Like, but really like. In a normal civilized society, like especially past a certain age, that shouldn't even be an issue.
Right.
In general. So that's the thing. Like when I saw UFC and they're like, I'm like, okay, who cares? It's fucking boring as fuck. Like, you know what I mean? Like whatever. But when I saw Pride, I was like, okay, what the fuck is going on? Fucking like the ramp, like you know, like that, and then like
the showmanship,
and the showmanship. Not only that, but like the mismatches they made. So like
free show fights.
Yeah, free show fights. I was like, what? Yo, this is
entertainment.
Great. Yeah, so that was like my gateway in. Then I started seeing like Gracie in action. Well, not Gracie in action. Actually, it was the Jacare ones and like Sakuraba. Like the old school MMA fans remember Robbie Parker. He made the highlights video. One was like the IQ wrestler Sakuraba.
Oh, okay.
Yo, it was amazing. The video that really got me, okay, I was like, I need to go start training. Was Genki Sudo. Okay, you guys go YouTube this shit.
The
Genki
West Side Submission. Everybody watched that shit. I watched that shit. Yo. I was like, oh shit, that's so cool. I was like, I gotta learn this jiu-jitsu stuff.
Yo, this fucking like not like, don't get me, he was bodied up, but like he's like just like. He kind of looks like athletic, whatever. This Asian dude comes in, just starts fucking murking everybody. Like, I was like, whoa, who is this guy with the cool ass tattoo? That little we know that he was training at like the Beverly Hills Jiu-Jitsu Club with like Bas Rutten, Mario Sperry, all these animals.
So like, apparently, like in reality, he was sandbagging all these guys. He was just like with a black belt level or whatever it was.
And he was like a great wrestler in Japan, like a freestyle. He was a really good freestyle wrestler. So he had always had that, you know, crazy movement and whatever. And shout out to Genki Sudo. Check out his band, like New World. Yeah, he can dance.
New World Order. He actually, you know, was pretty smart. You know, he kind of like retired on the top, so to speak. He didn't take any like too many bad losses or anything like that. I mean, I as a Genki, you know. Now that I'm thinking back, when did I first get into MMA? It was actually probably watching Genki Sudo. Everybody was watching Genki Sudo. So it was like, damn, I was a Genki Sudo fan, even though for the longest time I have not thought of this guy because it's almost like, he came out of my consciousness.
Don't worry, man. It's like your first one, man.
Yeah, but
you
then
forget and then...
Now that I remember, it's like, yeah, you know what? It was Genki Sudo who brought me into MMA, right? It was him. You know, and remembering him now, he got out I personally, as a fan, I thought like, damn, I want to watch him like really make a serious run in UFC or whatever it is. But UFC kind of like treated him badly, and didn't give him the fights that he needed to fight and whatever. He went back to Japan, and then
the K1
shortly quit after retired after like he faced Kid Yamamoto. And I wasn't a Kid Yamamoto fan at the time. I was always a Genki Sudo fan. So like when he lost to Kid Yamamoto, I thought, I was like, oh, that was bullshit. It's like early stoppage or whatever it is. But whatever. But I mean, he retired like on top, and for me as a fan, I was like, man, that sucks. Like I want to watch him keep fighting. But yeah, man, he's the man though.
But now that you're an adult and how much UFC fighters don't get paid that much.
Yeah.
He probably got paid okay by K1.
Yeah.
But people don't know. But he actually came back, did a master's in public policy at like his university, like
right.
NIH, whatever, Nippon University,
right.
And he became the head wrestling coach there.
Nice.
And they became It's like, to give you guys like an idea, it's kind of like the Iowa State like of like Japan when it comes to wrestling. So it's like a very serious program. So
right.
He did that, then he got the New World Order thing. So basically, he got me into it, and I started like, I think everybody, I tried Jiu-Jitsu at like, at Gamma in Montreal. That was at the time, it was like, I think it was BTT already. Yeah, it was BTT under Fabio Hollanda. Shout out to Fabibi. So basically, I tried it there. Honestly, like most people, like you try, you're like whatever. Like you don't get the bug. You're just like, okay, it was fine. Like it's kind of gay. Like so let's be real. Like,
and, is that what you said?
Yeah, I was like, well, okay, I guess. Like I mean, like, do I really want to spend my whole time training to be good? Because like you saw that the people who were good were really dedicated.
Yeah.
And you're like, do I really want to do this like all the time? Hell no. Let's go like fucking play sports and like go out with guys and like and like the crew and then like go after girls, right?
Okay.
So, I was like, man, like it's cool, but like it's not worth it.
Right. Okay.
So I tried with Koji. And I went and I liked it, but once again, it's just like I was doing so many sports.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, I think people know this, like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu takes a lot out of your body.
Yeah.
Maybe not as much today because of the sports style, but back then, man, it was brutal.
Yeah.
Like top control, really that grinding stuff. Like today, people cry when I do like a little shoulder of justice.
Yeah.
Man, like back in the day, like I would make people tap with knee on neck all the fucking time.
Yeah.
Like I do it sometimes till now just to laugh. Like it's like somebody I know.
Yeah.
But yeah. Like it was way more like dirty, like, or I guess like the hardcore back then, like kind of catch style.
Yeah.
So basically, I spent a couple years like after like this is university, and I never really got back into jiu-jitsu. I tried to get back into it. I actually tried Gracie Baja for a bit when Bruno came because I kind of knew his lineage, but it wasn't really the vibe for me. And shout out to Toronto Nogi where I went on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So like that's the more kind of vibe I'm in. Like, and Revo's kind of like that. Like that's the whole lineage of like it's like informal. It's rolling hard. It's like trying crazy shit. Like really. Just like it's more like a club than like a academy, like you know what I mean? Like it's like a fight club, but like grappling style.
Right.
And to be fair, like actually a lot of MMA fighters have come out of like Revolution, but it's clearly a BJJ school.
Right.
Number one, there's like a Muay Thai program, judo, and all that shit, wrestling, and a bit of MMA, but really it's a BJJ school. So it was really when I started working. And I was playing rugby and hockey and whatever, and I was just like, you know what, like I really would like to try to go into like really get good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because I would always be on Sherdog and shit. I'd be reading and I'd be like, man, could I actually be good at this shit? So I got into like I was doing Muay Thai,
right.
Like I tried boxing again, like, and I was always like Jiu-Jitsu, like because it's like human chess, and so. Really, I think like it was 2010, 2011. That's when I got deep into it.
Yeah.
Where I'd be training, like more than like three times a week and more.
Yeah.
And
that's around the same time I got into it.
Yeah. So that's when I got deep into it. I was a huge, long time MMA fan since like 2007, 2008. But really, like to dedicate to go train, that's like when it's like, okay, let's do this. And I started with a gi. And then like no-gi, I'm pretty athletic, so no-gi I was always better. But we're a gi school, like we only have 2 no-gi classes per week.
Right.
So I competed a lot, like and because I was athletic and I had a base in judo like before, like when I was younger, I got like my blue belt in like 4 months.
Yeah.
So like like I think like 2011 I already had my blue belt. Like I think, or maybe I can't remember. Anyways, so like. I was competing, having a lot of fun, like trying shit out. And I think like every in jiu-jitsu has like that thing too. It's like you try different kind of games. Like sometimes I was like doing spider guard, close guard, like all that shit. And I was always big into takedowns. And I think that's the thing that like I think that's missing Brazilian jiu-jitsu is like it should be mandatory that like we roll starting standing up. Even in training, I think like it doesn't matter even if it takes too much space. And I understand the risk. Like I do give classes, but I think it's just like it's just a bad habit, and it makes you terrible. Like it makes you always want to pull guard. Totally. Don't understand posture, all that kind of stuff. Totally. And you know, like that's that I feel like that's thing as jiu-jitsu becomes more and more sport, we're losing all the martial aspects. And I think it's just normal. I mean, like taekwondo was like that, karate was like that,
judo was like that.
Yeah,
they changed all the rules.
Yeah. So that's like that's like why like I really like I love submission only. Like I compete a lot, like in sub only. Like, but the thing that's cool about that is because you can be real aggressive, which is my game. You know, like flying kimuras, flying footlocks, like fucking like scissor takedowns. But the problem is like it gives no incentive for a takedown or for passing or to be traditional. So you're even more wild, and like it becomes even more a game. And I think that's like people are talking about. The Danner have death squad, and to be fair, like most of those guys are very complete. Like Gary Tonin is the most complete, I would say. But like the knock is like, oh, they only do leg locks. But that's the thing, because the more it becomes any rule set will be exploited. Like in gi jiu-jitsu, the problem is like because of advantage and the sweeps, it becomes the sweep fest and advantage fest. So then it denaturates like the whole martial aspect of it. And the same thing with submission only. It's like, well, why would I go just for leg locks? Because it takes the least energy, and like if you know it, it's like you can finish it. Really easily versus like having to pass guard, like do all that kind of stuff.
Interesting that you got to this point. So then I'm sure, well, I'll ask you this question. I'm sure some people would want to ask you this question too. So why did you end up taking the Nicky Ryan fight? Is that his name?
Yeah. So Nicky.
So what happened with all that? Tell me about that. Well, tell the listeners about that.
Well, Nicky Ryan is an animal. Like obviously the kid's like 16 now. He was 15, I think, when I faced him, or maybe he's still 15. I don't know. So he's Gordon Ryan, who is an absolute animal himself. Like he's 3-time EBI champ, I think. Everybody knows him as King Ryan. Like he has strong social media, like trolling job. He's a really good troll. And so his brother is a like pretty young kid. Him himself, he's young. I think he's like 22, and he's beaten like a lot of fucking animals. Like he's beating a lot of really guys. The only really guy to kill him is Felipe Pena, and like honestly, like from what I understand, Gordon was sick. Not as an excuse, but like in a sense, like he's game. He tapped Keenan out in after 2 hours of grappling. Not like 2 hours, but like an hour and a half of grappling. And Keenan's a beast. Keenan will fight anybody. So his brother Nicky, like at the time, like I knew he was good. He was training like a lot. And the kid's like at that time he was like 15, right? So this dude, shout out to Cat Clark, who's like a promoter of Submission Pro Series. And he was doing these events in Nova Scotia where he was flying out like really high level guys and putting up cash prizes and trying to make it really legit and professional. It's really hard because like Nova Scotia is pretty like it's not like a major hub. So he basically said, I need a purple belt under like around 130 pounds, like who's game to go. And let's be real, like let's be honest, like they were looking for a showcase fight for Nicky. And I thought, like, you know what? Like, I'm pretty good. Like, I'm not like something. I'm no world champ. Like, it's for fun. But I think, like, I can definitely, like, I can give him a run for money. I think I can beat him. Like, he's good. But he's 15. Like, and also, like, I think, like, most people know, like, I'm pretty strong for my size. So
you are strong for your size. Just for evidence. for like a witness. I grappled, Danny, and I was surprised, when I locked up with him. I'm like, this guy's what, 140 pounds or 145 pounds, something like that. 130 pounds. Yeah, you do not feel like a 130 pounder. I mean, he feels like 160 pounder at the very least. So definitely felt the difference with like the grips and the grappling strength that you have. So yeah.
So that's like how I was feeling, like, and don't get me wrong, like, let's be completely honest. Like, for pro wrestling aficionados, they'll know, like, I was brought in as a jobber in a sense that, like, which is, to be honest, it didn't bother me in a sense like, oh, like it's insulting to be brought in as a jobber.
Right.
It was more like, oh shit, this guy was way better than I thought he was.
Right.
So to give you an example, like, so not example, sorry, to give you the backstory.
Right.
Nicky Ryan, basically he trains in Ocean City in Atlantic, near Atlantic City, like it's in New Jersey at that time. But he was also like, after my fight, like he was also training with John Danaher, but now he basically trains full time at John Danaher, and he doesn't go to school. He's homeschooled by John Danaher. So at the time I was like, okay, this guy's definitely no white belt, okay, and he's definitely very good. And I knew he's already tapped like black belts, but like full disclosure, I've tapped black belts too. Like, so I was like, whatever, like I can take some heat. Yeah. So when we went there, like I knew of him through social media, but also because TriStar, there's two guys who are really good. Shout out to homeboys from Montreal, Olivier Taza and Ethan Christensen. So those two guys, like they were like the first kind of international star grapplers in a sub-only game from Montreal, because they went to Danaher to train 2 weeks out of the month, consistently. So they really like, and so I knew them from there, and I was like, okay, so I know they're good. Like Ethan, like I think like it's pretty clear like is at this point like a more credentialed grappler than I am. But when we first locked horn, we were both blue belts. Like I was very advanced blue belt at that point, and probably like a bit sandbagging. But like after that, he got to purple. Like now he's already brown. Like to give you like how good he is. But I had fought him a couple times. Like he beat me every time. But I was like, like Ethan's pretty good, but like it's not like he fucking like I have no business being in the ring with him. Sure. So when we went over there, and then I saw Taza started fighting, and I see Nicky Ryan starting to coach like Taza. I was like, oh shit, okay, all right, this guy knows what he's talking about. Okay. So then we start going, and the first 3 minutes went pretty well because I had a strategy of like really bringing the pace and like doing these flying attacks and like really trying to pass with speed and like angles. Sure. And if you actually watch it, it looks pretty gangster like at the beginning. Like it's doing pretty well. Yeah, I watched it. So, but as soon as he grabbed like my leg and like there was the flip, like you have your basic escapes and that kind of stuff. We'll step 1, 2, 3, whatever. He was like 4, 5, 6. Was already covered. Yeah. And that's when we were like, oh shit. And also his grip was insane. Yeah. So then like I was like, okay, this is like a different level. Right. And then he tapped me and it was fine. Right. So that's the reason why I took the fight, because one is a fun experience, and it's honestly it helped a lot with the notoriety. Like
sure. I mean, it wasn't like a lose situation for you. Yeah. It's like, I mean, I guess in your mind it was like, hey, it's a no lose situation for me. I feel like I could hang with him. I'll go in there, make a name for myself type of thing, upset, whatever. From another perspective, this is not my perspective. I just heard people on the street saying this, whatever. They were saying like, oh, I didn't understand why, Danny Vu would take that, because either he would have won and they would have said, oh, you beat a kid, or you would have lost and they would have just made fun of you and just like, and they did make fun of you. I saw people on blog posts, they were posting about like, oh, Nicky Ryan, whatever, taps out this 30-year-old dude, try and like make you sound bad and stuff, didn't even put your name on there, like, and I'm just like, wow, they try to make you look bad. But do you have anything to say about that?
Well, to be honest, like, and I'm saying this to be like completely, the reason why I'm saying always all to be honest is because obviously I could say, oh, fuck the haters, whatever. But I think like it's a valid point in the sense like, why would you do that? Right. And for me, it was like exposure. Right. And also,
hey, I'm not mad about it.
No, but I'm just saying like, like because like like BJJ, like Eastern, like all these like like kind of like clickbaity, like websites.
I think it took a lot of balls, and I actually think like freaking thumbs up to you for stepping up, because me personally, I think a lot of people, when it comes to like whatever, anything that has to do with competition, whether you're an actor trying to get a role, whether you're a stand-up comedian trying to get that break, musician fucking singing at a bar, whatever it is I think you need to go out there and actually know where you stand. So I actually respect that a lot, like just out of principle, like I respect that. I actually find it like more frustrating for me if I know somebody and I know that they're good, I know what they're capable of, but they kind of like don't want to do it because they're not mentally, they just don't want to mentally do it. they're not the kind of guy that has the personality to put themselves out there and just take a risk and whatever. I feel like you should take risks. You know what I mean? Like, you got one life. You know what I mean? You got a limited number of years in you. Like, if you want to make it fun, you want to make it a bang, you know, like, do it. You know what I mean? You're in it anyways. You might as well in it and do it and go to the fullest. So there's a lot of people, I think, hold back too much because they don't respect their skills enough. So I actually, you know, respect that you went out there and you actually tried it. And that to me is, you know, I respect that.
Yeah, well, because the thing is, like, I knew Nicky was good. I just didn't know how good. And honestly, like I said, the first 3 minutes, like, I felt pretty good with his strategy. And who knows, if I could have pushed it harder, maybe I could have caught him. Because, man, after 3 minutes, he was breathing hard, even though he tapped me.
Mm-hmm.
So, don't get me wrong, he tapped me and kicked my ass. But that's my
Sure.
point. Like, to make that very clear.
Sure.
But my point is, like, I knew I had a chance to win. So for me, it was like, let's do it. Mm-hmm. And also, I knew Nicky was going to be something special. Like, just from his pedigree, and I did my research. So I was like, hey, like, when are you going to have a chance to, like fight a future world champ or future, like, I don't know, legend is going to be a strong word. But to give you an example, this dude freaking finished third at EDCC trials,
right.
Okay, at 15, 16 years old, like this year,
right.
in New Jersey, and only lost to Justin fucking Rader.
Right.
Justin Rader, who's, like, you know, former NCAA, like, wrestler, Lovato's first black belt, MMA fighter, who
right.
Gary Tenen beat at Fight to Win recently, but
right.
couldn't tap.
Right.
So it's like over 10 minutes. So that's why I took the fight. Like, it didn't really bother me, like, the stuff, because I had a great time.
Yeah.
Like, I really appreciate the opportunity Kat gave me.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was a great experience. Like, you know, it's really fun. Like, I had my boy Eli, who's my main drilling partner. Like, he came with me. Like, we were chilling with, like, Flo Patrick, former UFC fighter, and in the house with John Tane Hall, who's, like, a great black belt too, from Primal MMA, I believe.
Right.
In Toronto, shout out. So for me, like, it was just a win-win all around.
Right.
And losing to Nicky Ryan, like, is no sweat off my back.
Yeah.
And
so I wouldn't, you know, be ashamed of that at all.
So the main reason is, yes, I'm very bold.
Yeah.
And for me, like, if I would have beat him, it would have been even better, because I would have shout out, like, I would have, like, challenged Gordon Ryan, like, as a, you know, like, something like retarded. Like, it's like, I beat your brother now, Gordon, give me a match.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's pro wrestling style for sure.
Yeah, but but that's why that was my mindset, because people have to understand also, like, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is, man, it's not life. It's just like it's a passion of mine.
Yeah.
But it's not the end of the world if I lose a match. And I think, man, if you see how much I compete, like, like, I'll win some, I'll lose some. Like, an example, I came back from, like, a bad rib injury, like, during the holidays. And then I competed at Grappling Industries and got my butt whooped. And then, like, a week or two later, I went to Ottawa and fucking won the whole thing.
Right.
And that's, like, the whole, like, mindset I have.
Right.
It's like, what doesn't kill you make you stronger.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm fearless when going to, I'll give you an example, like, I went to Toronto Nogi because I heard, like, they had the best Nogi in town.
Right.
And I was just like, yo, let's do this shit. And fucking Carlos fucking butt raped me, right? Like, shout out to Carlos Rios. But that's my point, is, like, going to gym with coaches is going to make you even better.
Yeah.
Like, it's just going to, every time, even if they beat you that time, you're going to take that and bring it to the next time.
Yeah, for sure. You know, right now you're you know what you know who you remind me of? You know, Rapper the Game.
Yeah.
You know, that's all he does is drop names. That's what you do. You drop names all the time.
That's right.
But yeah, so I actually have a question for you now. So now that you got a taste of that level, right? You know, you understand where the level of those dudes are, and you're currently what, purple still, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you understand where that level is now. So in your jiu-jitsu journey, for a guy, and you've been doing jiu-jitsu like for 6-7 years, is that?
Seriously, probably like 7.
Okay.
Like, overall, I guess, like, we're looking at 9. But
okay.
Like, really,
okay.
seriously, like,
sure.
7.
Like, serious, like, whatever, 6-7 years. I guess maybe you could let us know what do you do now to get to that next level? I'm assuming, you know, you're competing a lot, so you're obviously aiming for the next level. You're taking it very seriously. What are some of the things that you're trying right now, refining? What is it that you're working on that's going to get you to that next level, you think, in your mind?
So this is completely my opinion, right? Like, I'm not a black belt. I don't pretend to be one. I think that I have a good level of jiu-jitsu, and I don't think anybody can say otherwise. And I think that I always put it on the line. So the thing is, with jiu-jitsu, there's the gi and there's without the gi. And then there's with reaping and no reaping, heel hook, no heel hook. And all of those are valid. Because the thing is, to get to the next level, I feel that you have to constantly seek out new challenges. And also, the biggest thing is training partners are key. And also, you have to, in my mind anyways, like the only way you get better is rolling with new people.
Right.
Because once you get in a pattern, like I think like anybody who does BJJ or a striking art or anything like does actual sparring knows what I mean. Like if you're
train with everyone, shout out to Dave Camarillo.
I'm like, okay, he's not gonna give you a purple belt. Anyways, but my point is exactly it is the thing, like, because if you train with everyone, you only make people better and you make yourself better. The biggest and the point I was trying to make though is that, and Danny, I think you know this, if you strike with the same people all the time and you grapple with the same people all the time, you know their patterns. If you're better than them, you're going to pretty much stay better than them because you know what's going on, whatever.
Or the opposite. If the guy knows your pattern and he's always better than you, then you always feel like, oh, I know he's going to beat me consistently, so I need to train with a different body.
Yeah, exactly. And also different circumstances. And so it's pretty funny because like most people who roll me and like they know like I have like insanely like a lot of insane flying, rolling submissions, and like I pass very aggressively, and I'm also very pressure oriented. But it's all about mentality, and jiu-jitsu is a lot about that because it's all what's between your two minds, like taking the shot, not taking the shot, passing or not passing, backstepping or not backstepping. Like, just are you gonna roll with the kimura? Are you gonna go for the guillotine? Like are you gonna hold on to the guillotine or not? Like all of that, like the steps that go before and after, all that is like a mindset thing. It's intellectual. And the physical is muscle memory. I think that's the most important. I don't necessarily subscribe to drilling to drill because a lot of people believe in drilling to win. I think sparring with the right mindset is more important, but that's me. Like I find like I gain a lot more from sparring than just from drilling. Like I'll give you an example. Like I think you should do 5-10 reps of drilling into like the position you want, and then you spar and you try to hit that. Okay? Or you try to hit like a certain 3 pattern move so that it's there when you see it. So for me, like I'll try a lot of different stuff. Like I'm Revolution, like I'm with Koji, and that's my main gym. That's where I train the most. But I'll train with other people. Like in the morning, like right now, I'm trying Luta Livre guy. Luta Livre is like a no-gi version of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that's much more submission oriented in the sense like they don't stop and hold as much, which has good and bad because like they lose position more, but they submit more also, and they're more wild in their stuff. But there's a lot of stuff that I like from their mentality I was able to transfer in my sparring. And so I'm trying that. Like it's fun. It's really like it's a different mindset. It's cool. I'm gonna train with another dude who's pretty high level, who's just came back from not overseas, but out of province. So like, you know, I'll wrestle like with only wrestling to get my stand up on. I'll try to do different things to improve basically the perspective of my grappling, because I feel that like, yeah, you can get better like the traditional way, like in jiu-jitsu where you're just drilling and repeating what you're doing. I find it not stimulating, you know? Like I feel like it lacks a certain flair to engage you. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But that's my opinion. Look, I'm sure that a lot of people will say, and I'm pretty sure they're right. Like if instead what I did was stay at Revo and drilled like an hour before class, and then like, you know, took copious notes like after training or whatever, and I would get much better faster. And you know, I would get promoted faster. That's probably true because you asked me like, you know, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm purple belt and that kind of question. It's like I'm to be honest, like I'm not sure belts mean that much anymore.
Sure. In
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu when it comes especially to no-gi grappling.
Sure.
Because
you're training in a different style. You're training no-gi Jiu-Jitsu. You're not really training gi Jiu-Jitsu. It's different. It's more dynamic. It's more, like you said, high intensity. Circumstances are different. Right? I get it. So you're seeking thrills and you're seeking the challenges and you're using that to stimulate your journey more so than, okay, if I drilled this 1,000 times, I know my technical game will become better. Therefore, I'll get that next belt. So you're more like, you know, almost like a dynamic, almost like a almost like an out of body experience. Like you're going outside the box, training.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So like like I'll train with Sambo guys, like like once every few weeks. It's just like to get that different experience and to try to bring that dynamic game into jiu-jitsu. It's harder with the gi because of the grips and all that stuff, but you can still do it. I'd still try to do it. But yeah, no gi, that's where it really shines, because you can be super aggressive, and if you defend the submission the right way, or like you have good defense, you're not as afraid. And especially if you don't, like, look, I'm not saying like I'm the toughest guy, but like when you're the smallest guy of the gym and you always get like pounded upon, like in the sense of like the wear and tear, like you can survive that. Like you're much less afraid of giving up position.
Sure.
So that's kind of like what like my mentality is. I don't think I would recommend it for other people. I think it's about your personality, and also people have to understand that like for me, I'm a guy who's trying to compete at the higher level when I'm a hobbyist. I don't do this full time at all. Like I have a full time job which I do very long hours at. So like I have to have something that after like a 12-hour day at work, like a freaking like high pressure like deals and all that kind of stuff, that I can be like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna take a shake and I'm gonna go train for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and put myself to the grinder. And it's not by doing fucking.
It's almost like you're decompressing.
Yeah. And it's not by doing like closed guard and doing fucking scissor sweeps. No, but like that's true. Like for me, like that's not what's gonna get me through. Like that training to get through the gym.
That's like your stress release almost, right? It's like you want to go in there and you just want to smash things.
Exactly.
Like a gorilla.
Exactly.
And it's interesting that you transition in this topic, with you being a part-time, I guess you could say like a part-time grappler, but still, taking it very seriously. Switching gears into that, it's very interesting that you went into this and you mentioned this. Tell us about that, because a lot of people that are going to compete at the highest level of anything are usually doing it full-time. How do you balance that? What are your experiences? How can you even maintain that? How can you even do that? Maybe this is more of a question for like the general listeners, not necessarily for me, because I also kind of like do freaking like 10 things at once, so I can kind of manage it, but I'm just crazy kind of like that. So then I think you and I are both crazy in a sense that we just pack on our freaking schedule and we just do this, do that, do this, and go 100 miles an hour. We're good. But what about the other people that are training full time? Maybe they're not working. What's the difference? What can you share with us?
Well, it's a mentality thing too, right? Like the question, like the thing that helps me the most is I don't mind losing. I know what my level is, like on my best day, and I know what my level is, like even if I'm getting my ass whooped by like a freaking like big white belt. I'm like, whatever, it is what it is. Like, sometimes, man, after a 12-hour day, you're just like, you know what, you don't have the juice. But the point is, like, you made that walk, and you're gonna be better after that walk. I can guarantee you. And the biggest thing is, you can't be afraid to lose. And you gotta expect that you just go and play your A game or try your shit, and if it goes wrong, you have next time. Because the thing is that you have to understand that if you have a full-time job, and even if you take, I'll give you an example, I think I train like maybe 15 hours per week, like like in general, like with strength and conditioning, everything. I think that's around like the right. Sometimes I do 2 days now. They work pretty well, like in the morning and the night. But the thing is, like, if you take the position that you want to compete at the higher level, you have to understand that there's people who are doing it full time, like you said. And if they're doing it full time, they just have that advantage on you. So there's two things you can do. You can the first one is train smarter, and that's like entirely up to debate. Like I said, some people think it's you gotta drill like an animal. Other, like for me, I don't think like I'm bored shitless when you drill, but that's just me. The other thing is, you have to take your wins and savor them and celebrate them. And your losses, you just leave them. Like, I'll give you an example. Me getting my ass whipped by Nicky Ryan, I did not regret it once. Like, to be, like, completely transparent. When I lost, I didn't feel, like, sad at all. Like, I was like, well, it sucks. Like, I wish I won. But I was already on to the next challenge. I was like, okay, what can I do? And, like, I'll give you an example. Like, one of the worst losses I had was against Ethan, like in December of last year, and I got like hip lock like on my knee, like in this weird position that, And I trained really hard for that fight. Like I really wanted to do well. Like a lot of my friends, like my families were there because it was like a huge invitational event, like in Montreal, like 300 people. Like I had a lot riding on the line. Like, you know, I was really like, I wanted to show like what I could do, and I got tapped in like a minute. Like, you know, like, and that's the thing. It was a huge disappointment for me, but it didn't kill me anymore after like that night. Like I was disappointed. Then it was all good. Like, and I even like put a side bet of $300 with Eden, so I lost $300 too.
Oh shit!
So, like I got my ass whooped. But the thing is, the next day I was like, okay, whatever. I went to have brunch and I went to do some yoga. It was all good. And then I was like, okay, what's the next competition?
Right, and I think, you know, I think what that means is you're drawing to the conclusion that the reason you have this mentality, the reason you have the healthy mentality of, you know, not being so upset about losing, and then being able to move on to new challenges is probably because of the fact that you are a hobbyist and you have a full-time job, you have a full-time career, things like that. Like, you got other things going for you, so you don't take the competition as a life and death situation. You take it as it's playtime for you. Like, you get to go in there, you get to have fun, like you said, be almost like a different persona, like your, you know, pro wrestling persona. You go in there, you almost become an alter ego, and you do whatever it is, and you live it like one match at a time. So you almost use that as an advantage.
Correct. That's a very good way of putting it. It's because the advantage you have over the person who are full timers is that, guess what? You want to go have fucking like, you know, mucho burrito. You can have mucho burrito. You want to go to a steakhouse? You can go to a steakhouse. You have a real job, okay?
Yeah.
Like, you have time for real relationships.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, your life is not the grind. Like, I don't think people understand how hard it is to be a full-time grappler.
Yeah.
There's technical
full-time
level.
fighter,
Exactly. Don't get me wrong. Yes, like, their technical level is way higher than you, but your mental state can be much stronger than theirs. Because for you can be much more aggressive. You can take much more chances. Because for you, when you wake up the next day, you got so much more, like, that doesn't ride on jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Like, will your friends, like you less because you lost at jiu-jitsu?
Right.
Like, or at MMA or whatever, at striking? Like, will, like, your family look at you, like, whatever?
Right.
Like, is your life dependent on social media? No. But the problem is, like, for those guys, if they don't win, like, it's a whole, like,
a big
season
setback.
gone.
Yeah,
like, you know, like, your Instagram, you know, all that stuff, like, all their metrics, all their stuff like that depends on it.
Yeah.
And their sponsors, like, I'll give you an example, like, people ask me often, like, yo, man, it's so gangster, you're sponsored by Dynasty, blah, blah, blah. That's true. And they're like,
see, this guy's just trying to take a moment to kiss ass now.
yeah, exactly. So they're like, oh, you know, like, the cool thing is, like, it gives me an identity, it gives me a social reach, gives me all that stuff that, like, is the perks. For that person who's coming full time, that sponsor is life and death. You know, they need that to continue training at the highest level, so they don't have to teach classes, so they don't have to, like, do privates all the time, so they can go, like, take X nutriments and whatever. So I feel that if you are a hobbyist and you really want to take to the next level, the most important thing is time management. And even I don't do it that well, because I just, honestly, I'm like freaking, like, wild. Like, I just, like, I'm just, like, you know, like, I'm not that kind of guy. But when I want to and when I can, if you organize your time, you'll be surprised how much time there is in a day to do the things you need to do.
Yeah.
Like, I'll give you an example. Like, I never trained in the morning before, then suddenly I wanted to.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I could do 2 a days.
Yeah.
Like, morning and night. All of a sudden, like, the energy was there.
Yeah.
You know, like, if the priority and the will is there, the body will follow.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, and, you know, I'm going to take a moment to maybe share a little bit, because, you know, I find that you and I are similar in some ways, you know, maybe not necessarily personality as well, but I think, like, our mentality is also similar because, you know, we all have the same 24 hours to grind. Other people I find, whatever, not to toot my own horn or anything like that, but and I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but there's certain people that, you know, maybe are around my network or around, you know, people who are close to me, whatever it is, or maybe people that I no longer am close with. You know, they'll do things at a certain pace where, you know, they'll lag, they won't do it, they won't pull the trigger or anything like that. For me, it's always like, just do it, do it, action, 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 action is better than no action. You can plan and prepare all you want, but ultimately, at some point, you're going to have to pull the trigger, because if you don't make the leap and go do something, you're never actually going to get there. And that's not just with sports or jiu-jitsu or martial arts or whatever. That's everything, like career, whatever, relationships, anything you can apply to. You're never really going to be ready if you just keep thinking about it. You think about it for too long, the moment's going to pass at some point. It's better for you actually to just do it. And then let's say you score a 70, or let's say you score 80, or let's say you surprise yourself and you score a 90, or maybe sometimes you'll fall on your face. You'll be like, oh shit, I failed at that thing. But at least now you have a benchmark to go towards, and it's like, okay, I could do that thing now. So let's say, whatever, you never competed in a MMA match before, you never competed in a grappling match before, and you always want to try it, or you always want to start a new martial art, but you just never tried it. You keep making excuses. You be like, oh, I don't have the time, blah blah. It's all bullshit, really. Everybody has the same amount of time. It's not that you get off work and you're more tired than I am, and whatever it is, all these bullshit excuses that people come up with. You can get off work and you can just go train for 2-3 hours, come back, eat your dinner, go to sleep, and then that's it. So you can live 2 lives. You can live 3 lives if you really wanted to. So a lot of people, what they have trouble with is procrastination. What other people have is fear. Whatever other people have is the mental block. They're just not mentally committing to that thing. And I guess what I want to share with it is fuck the mentality. Like, fuck the mental block. Just go do it. Just jump into the damn thing. Then you have an idea of what it is. Then you can either sink or swim. Then you'll figure it out as you're going. So if you keep standing on the cliff and you never jump off, then you would have never accomplished anything in your entire life.
Yeah, I 100% agree, because I think like a lot of people, what holds them back is also like their social circle. So I'll give you an example. Like, if you want to train, like, you can train. Like, I'll give you an example. If you do a 12-hour day, let's say like you do from 7 to 7. If you want to, you take a shake, you go train for an hour and a half. You're still home by the time like it's 9.
Yeah.
You're home at 9, like you take a shower, you whatever. You still got until like, midnight before going to bed.
Exactly.
If you so desire to do that. Let's say like you were doing 12-hour days. My point is, like, most people do probably like 8-hour days, like, right? Like a maybe like 8 to 6 or 8 to 5. So usually the problem is like what people do is like, okay, they finish at 8 to 5, they're like, okay, I have to go home.
Right.
Then I have to have to make supper, I have to eat.
Right.
And then okay, I gotta watch TV, like watch whatever. And then it's my night's done.
Yeah.
Or I have to spend time with my buddies, like blah blah blah. Like right now, like I can't do after training, I can't do before, So don't get me wrong, it takes a lot of will, but that's the thing. Like,
I think a lot of it is distractions. I think a lot of like there's BS things that human beings do that you don't really have to do. For example, TV is one of them. Like, I don't watch any TV. Like, I'll be honest with you, I don't watch no shows, nothing like that. TV is like garbage to me. TV to me is not art. I don't know if I told you this before, but I only watch films. And when I watch films, like, I actually pick the real films to watch. I don't watch like mainstream kind of garbage type of things that are like based on formulas and like you already know what's gonna happen next. Like, I watch like films. I don't watch TV because TV to me is like the lower grade version of a film. Not all TV shows are like that, but I'm saying most TV shows are like that. And it's a complete waste of time, right? Because as a human being, what happens is when you consume these things, you let those things take control of your life, as opposed to you being the person that is creating something for yourself. So when you're only watching TV shows, really what it is you got all this time, you just wasted it because you put it into like mindless entertainment. You could have taken that time, you could have built something for yourself, whatever it is. You could have freaking built something in the garage, whatever project you had in the garage. You could have like invented something. You could have whatever worked out. You could have trained. So there's all these things that you can do with your time. It's just people are not making the smart choices. People are not making the right choices.
But I think that's the problem is like society has like made us consumers.
Yeah.
But not the consumers necessarily of the best thing. So, for example, I think that like TV, your point is generally well taken in a sense like the most popular TV shows aren't like, I'll give you an example. I think Game of Thrones, even though it's formulaic, I think it's like a quality TV show.
Yeah,
but
I'm not talking about AAA shows.
No,
like A-level shows. I enjoy them because they're made like art.
But my point is like, an example, like reality TV shows.
Yeah,
like,
I don't like that stuff.
But my point is like, that's the most popular thing.
Right.
In that kind of stuff like The Bachelor or whatever. No, but it's true. But,
yeah.
But my point is like, think about it if like
it's all scripted, by the way.
Yeah. but my point is like, think about it if you were watching your life at like a movie, right? Like, you know, if you looked at your life and okay, this person goes to work 8 to 5.
Yeah.
He goes back home. He makes his food.
Yeah.
He chills whatever and with his friends or his girlfriend or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they watch TV together. They go to bed, and that's it. And
yeah.
they go do some stuff like that. And there's no passion. There's no like hobby. There's no arc in their life besides like okay, maybe don't get me wrong, like kids, getting married, all that's important. But that I think we kind of know now, like that's not life. Like it's not. It can't be your finality. I mean, it's been like.
If you exist only to further your own existence, then there's no point.
But that's the thing is like also like I think that's the big thing with social media. People can say whatever they want, but social media has shown that guess what? There is an alternative to that. Like you can still have kids or like be older, not have kids, but have something more. You know, having projects, having like something of substance, having like something to really like go after, and not just go through this image that society has like kind of pushed upon you, like oh yeah, white picket fence, like you know, like two cars, 2 kids, whatever, and like you're unhappy because I think like that's like the biggest thing that people have realized is that image that's sold as the American or Canadian dream, it's really not for everyone, and it like there's a lot of reasons why people are trying to break away from the traditional 9 to 5 and that kind of stuff. Because it doesn't fulfill them. Sure. And the thing is, like before, it was like everybody did the same thing, and you couldn't see the outliers because there was no social media. Yeah. And also, I'll give you an example. Like it's like, oh, that guy who's 40, he has no kids, like he's just out and about, and he travels. He seems like a loser. Now you're like, fuck, that guy has it together. Like he's like, you know, doing the stuff he loves, like, you know, and he's not like just doing stuff just because people expect it. Right. And I think a lot of people, and like myself included, we do a lot of stuff because it's expected of us. Right. You know, and we don't want to disappoint or, you know, break this image that we're supposed to project. Sure. And that is why, like, a lot of times we don't do the things we're supposed to do. And so, like, for the whole question of, like, you know, jiu-jitsu or any art that you want to pursue seriously, if you want to do it seriously, you can do it. Like, unless, like, you have a serious injury or, you know, like, you know, like you're really, really strapped financially, which is very possible, but unless, like, those extremes are there, if you have a passion, there's enough time in the day. Even with a 9 to 5 jobs. 9 to 5, like, look, man, it's only 9 to 5. Yeah. Between 6 and 12, that's 6 full hours. Right. Okay? Maybe take 2 hours out to eat, shower, whatever. That's 4 hours that you could be dedicating to your passion. Right. You're not going to tell me you couldn't find 2 hours of that 4 hour or an hour and a half to go train or to do that art or to, I don't know, maybe you love like social media, like marketing, that kind of stuff. Like you couldn't do that practice while that hour and a half. Right. I think people feel like if they go like, this is what I'm going to do from this time to this time, and they commit to it, they can do it. So I think that's like the biggest thing when it comes to being a hobbyist is that you really have to commit yourself a certain portion of your life to that. Mm-hmm. Like for me, like during the weekend, like I'm training Saturday and Sunday X amount of time, like an hour and a half, even whatever. And guess what? There's still the rest of the weekend for me to enjoy, like, and do other stuff than just train. Mm-hmm. So people are like, oh man, you train so much. I'm like, well, I do, but I could train way more. Yeah. Like I could do like 2 a days, like every day, but I don't have that discipline yet. I might have to as I get older and if I want to get like to that next level. Right. But that's kind of like what I'd say like when it comes to being a hobbyist, you know, balancing like your professional life or your real world with your passions. And that's just like we're talking about like martial arts and but that's the thing because we live in an age that technology has given us so much. has given so much access from work to our hobbies. Just to give you podcasting, like podcasting has enriched my life in so many ways. It's like having books, but like being able just to listen to them and different like perspectives. It's just it's such an amazing opportunity. So to give you an example, like before, if you wanted to like try with some, I'll give you an example. Let's say you wanted to do some Wing Chun.
Right.
You'd have to go look into like the freaking phone book, go around, whatever. Right. Now you can go online, look at reviews, look at the lineage, look at what they're doing, go try it out, then go try another, whatever. Right. That's just for Wing Chun. Let's say you're into yoga, same thing. There's so much. The information age has allowed us to pursue what we want to pursue, and the only thing
easier, much more accessible.
And the question is like, do we have the courage to do it?
Right.
And I think that's like the biggest thing. Like, as long as you have the courage to do it, even if you fail according versus to what you want it to be, I think like it's a huge success. Because I'll give you an example. Like most people who are 7 years into jiu-jitsu, they're freaking like already almost at their black belt. Right. Like they're like at least brown belt or brown belt, like like 2-3 stripes.
Right.
But for me, it's just like the everything that is around the journey. Right. That's what's giving me so much pleasure and giving me so much reward. Right. And that's the thing. Like the image of what you're supposed to be, it doesn't matter as much as what fulfills you. So like, I'll give you an example. Maybe you want to do yoga or whatever, and after 7 years, you're not even that amazing. But you're so much better than if you didn't do anything.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And not only that, it's like, you're probably way happier than if you didn't do that.
Exactly. A lot of people like get caught up, and I just recently had a conversation with another friend of mine. A lot of people get caught up on the result, right? But they don't really understand that the journey is also a gift. So they're always like, there's this unattainable goal that I always want to attain, but I never want to start that hobby or start that pursuit because they fear that they're never going to reach their end goal, which they think is the ultimate thing that's going to bring them happiness. Like whatever, they get their black belt or they become a world champion or something like that. But they don't understand that, the actual journey is also, the prize as well, and some say are more important than the end goal. It's all of the experiences, all the things that you gain, all the skills that you gain, all the network that you gain, all the friendships that you gain. Even just to talk about the brand for a second. If I didn't start this thing, Dynasty, whatever, if I didn't channel my passion for martial arts, channel my passion for art, design, whatever, passion for fashion, passion to make a difference out in the world of the MMA arena, put some, authentic gear out there. If I didn't have this passion, then I would have never done this. But because I had this passion and I was like, screw it. I'm just that kind of guy. It's like, I'll do it. Back in when I was still just discovering like whatever, where my art was and whatever, I would do anything. I would do like design, I would do like music, I would do like movies, I would do like whatever. And then now I've kind of honed in on like maybe one or two things that I'm actually, I can really, really pursue and just drop the other things. It's not like I didn't do, embarrassing things as an artist as I was developing as an artist. Yeah, sure, I've done a bunch of bad, dumb shit that I can't show anybody. But that's the stuff that, you take and you're like, okay, I learned a lot from that project and why that project sucked. Now I'm never ever going to show it to people, but now I learned, why that project sucked. And now you get to a point, and even Dynasty in the beginning, it was nothing impressive. I never think my stuff's that impressive. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that would agree with me that they're like, oh yeah, your stuff is still no good. That's good. That's cool, because I never think, my stuff is the best. I always strive to keep getting better. That's my attitude. So you had to start somewhere, right? So in the beginning, it was probably complete shit. And I probably agree with you. Like a lot of designs in the beginning were too messy, whatever it was. But we always improve, right? And, look at where we are now. So like the whole store, you've seen like, I don't even know what the exact number is, but we got like over 50, 70, products now. And in the start, we started with 3 t-shirts. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you have to begin somewhere, right? And beginning somewhere is important, and believing yourself is also important too. It goes back to the ego thing. And an interesting thing is, sometimes people think, oh, ego is a bad thing. I actually think you need a healthy amount of ego in order to be able to get anything done in life. but even more so important when it comes to something like art, or when it comes to something that is like so intangible or so unthinkable to other people, because it all comes down to your own vision. So if you're a singer, or you're an actor, you're whatever, you're doing fashion, you're doing any kind of art thing, it's so important that you do have a certain amount of ego. And I'm not talking about the unhealthy kind of ego. I'm not talking about the delusional ego where it's like, okay, your art is garbage or your brand sucks, but you believe in it and nobody else does. I'm saying like, okay, having a healthy amount of ego where it's like, okay, you're 70-80% pretty sure about yourself and your ideas, and then the other 20-30% is like you're always constantly checking yourself. You're like, okay, is my stuff actually good? Then you get some actual evidence, you get some comparisons, you get some studies or whatever it is that you're comparing it to, you get some feedback. So then there's that healthy balance between, okay, being humble, and then there's that balance between being just egotistical enough where it's like the people that are trying to bring you down, or the people that are just going to try and say bad shit to you, you're going to ignore those guys and just push on and be like, no, I believe in this design, or I believe, this is what the world needs, or I believe that the market needs this product. Then you're going to have that drive to push it there. But if you have zero ego, then that means you're not going to believe in yourself at all, and the first roadblock that you're going to bump into, or the first piece of criticism that you're going to run into, you're going to give up immediately because you don't believe in yourself. So I think every successful person needs to have a certain kind of ego, and it's just the kind of ego that you have to keep in check. And in order to keep that ego in check, I would say do not surround yourself with yes men. I would say surround yourself with other people who are also equally motivated as you are. I would say surround yourself with people who are either have the same credentials as you do, or even better, so that you feed off of them. And keep yourself in check all the time. And and of course, be confident, but also be humble.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like the thing you spoke about, like the brand, right?
Yeah.
So like Dynasty, when you think about it, like when you first started, there was no Asian brands, like real brands. You had like all these MMA brands, like Hayabusa, like I don't know, like the gazillion brands with like terrible Asian motifs that made zero sense. Right. You had like
and I'm not paying this guy to say this thing right now. This is like what you told me when you first saw the brand.
Yeah. So basically, like you had like pandas with like fucking like samurai swords.
right.
And it's like, look, I don't think like it's something egregious in a sense. Like it's like the most terrible thing in the world. But you're just like, okay,
it's not the most terrible thing in the world. But let me take a chance to just explain to like people who might not understand what that really looks like to us. It's like if sorry if I'm repeating myself. I might have said this in the previous episode, but I'll just say it again. It's like taking like a 4-leaf clover, putting an American eagle on it, and then putting like a freaking a unicorn and a maple leaf and an American flag and Vladimir Putin on there. Onto a design, like onto a rash guard.
He's exaggerating a bit, but yes.
I'm exaggerating a little bit, but that's kind of basically what it is. It looks silly. It looks like, okay, you just took a mishmash of things, and then you kind of felt like that made sense, but actually doesn't really make any sense in like Asian people's eyes.
So, or anybody who knows like general culture.
Right.
But like when you started a brand, like honestly, you had some ugly ass shit. Like on like the stuff, like it just like it's like when you're starting off, you're doing this stuff. But that's the thing. It's like everybody who wants to achieve something, they have so many failures. Let's forget just like about like my like jiu-jitsu. Like okay, I lost a bunch of matches and like whatever. But like I did 2 Muay Thai smokers, and like man, I looked terrible in sparring. Like when I was doing them, like whatever. But I got to the smokers, and that's the most important part in the sense that it's the journey that got to me to smokers. Another thing that I really regret and I'm still trying to work on is my Kali, which is like Filipino martial arts.
Oh, okay.
So like I'm really big into like sticks, but I'm not very good at I'm not very coordinated when it comes to like sticks and that kind of stuff. And I still practice, and I try to go to like Gamma Gilinas. It's just like the schedule is like so like not good for my schedule. But that's the thing. It's like even though I failed repeatedly, like what my ultimate goal was to do like a dog brother fight. Hopefully that will happen in the future. But the thing is that like just doing it and trying it, it's opened me to new cultures, new worlds, new people, new
Exactly.
connections. And that's like the most important part because like honestly, I am terrible at Cali, but like honestly, if I showed you like there's actually I think like my sister has it on her Snapchat,
Right.
like legit, like I'm taking 2 tomahawks and fucking like doing like heavenly wave,
Yeah.
and it looks pretty fucking smooth.
Yeah.
Even though I find myself like terrible at it.
Right.
So that's my point. It's like that's like a like obviously like it's kind of useless, but my point is like what you think is terrible or what you think is a failure, you look at it afterward, you're like, hey, that's pretty cool.
Exactly.
Like I'm not that bad. Oh, an example, like sometimes I'll go spar like knife fighting like with some fellow martial artists, and guess what? I'm not that bad because I've been training, trying to do my thing. So that's like just like from a martial arts perspective, but that's the thing with Dynasty. It's like it's crazy. Like today, you got people begging you to like sponsor them,
Right.
You know, like, and that's crazy because like, you know, when you think about it, it's something that was started like in your parents' like basement, right?
Yeah.
Basically, and now it's like an international brand worn by like a lot of well-known MMA fighters.
Yeah.
I
we
mean-
definitely have some pro people on our team as
And
well.
not only that, like you sponsor some guys like that, you know, who are not great when they started,
Yeah.
and now like they're pretty household, like not household name, but they're pretty well known.
I wouldn't even say we sponsored them when they were not good. It's almost like, you know, we believe in them. So we, you know, in our eyes, well, in my eyes, I knew like they were pretty good or whatever it is. But, you know, one good example would be Ben Nguyen. Ben Nguyen is a UFC fighter and freaking he's on Dynasty.
Yeah.
Just think about that for a second. I'm just like, when I first reached out to him, I didn't know what to expect. I was just like, and
Was he even part of Tiger Muay Thai or no at that point?
I'm not sure, but we'll get Ben Nguyen in on an episode for sure on Dicey Podcast. But just to go into a little bit about it, it's like when I reached out to him, I didn't know what was gonna happen. I was just reaching it out more like in the perspective of a fan. You know, I reached out to him. I'm like, hey, I'm a fan. You know what I mean? Like I saw that video clip where you knocked the guy out, blah 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 blah. What it is. Oh, and I just happened to also do this. And then he was like into it. And he was like, for sure, bro, you know, this is, it's just super nice dude, super friendly guy. So definitely want to get him on an episode for sure. And, you know, I'm about to send him a message. I haven't spoken to him in a while, but he got that new fight with Benavidez. So, you know, a lot of people are counting him out. So
That's gonna be a hard fight.
Obviously, I think it's going to be a tough fight too. But, you know, hey, it's all about the underdog, right? Like, everybody's counting you out, right? Everybody's counting me out. Everybody's counting Dynasty out, and everybody's counting Ben Nguyen out. So, you know, he's obviously on our team. You know, bias or no bias, I gotta support the guy because, you know, he's the one out there. Like you said, right? Most of us are hobbyists, but he's not. He's the full-time guy out there putting in the grind, putting in the work in. Gotta respect that.
And not only that, I don't think people understand his story, how crazy it is. So this guy's like from North Dakota, right?
Yeah.
Like Vietnamese, like me, like Vietnamese American.
Yeah.
And he's like doing MMA. He's like not doing great, man. Like if you
Yeah.
look at his record before he went to Asia, it was like 5-5 maybe.
Yeah.
Because he was like a hobbyist and since he had a full-time job, whatever.
Yeah.
And
He
he
worked
was
in IT.
Yeah. So he was like, yo, man, like what am I gonna do? Because people don't understand, like office jobs take a lot out of you. Like
Yeah.
they take a lot out of you,
Yeah.
like mentally and physically. And so he like was like, okay, you know what? I think I'm gonna quit MMA. Instead, he went to Thailand and went to try out for like Tiger Muay Thai.
Yeah, the program.
Yeah, the program like for the fighters. He got in, then kicked some serious ass all over Asia,
Yeah.
and then got a UFC contract.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy
Yeah.
when you think about it. Now he's in Australia, right?
Yeah, he's in
Yeah.
Australia. And you got to think about it. It goes back to the whole theme of this, you know, episode is that there were times where he was like, oh, I'm not that great. Or like, you know, I have my losses and blah, blah, blah. But the whole point was he pushed through, right? He took that chance. And then, you know, hey, he's in the UFC. He's fighting. You know, he's winning most of his fights. I would say that's a pretty big success even just based on that. You know, and like seriously, best of luck to him, you know, in this upcoming fight, and hopefully we can get him on and
Yeah, if he
talk about his
could beat
experiences.
Joe, that would be like a pretty crazy. Like honestly, he would be right in the top 5.
Yeah, it would be crazy, and you know, it's not totally out of the realm of possibility. I mean, anything can happen in MMA, right? Like you could have a really great night, the other guy can have an off night, and you can get it done.
And I think the biggest
Bisping beat Rockhold for the title, like
exactly. And like honestly, like Benavidez, the other thing is like he's been like a perennial contender.
Yeah.
So the question is like, can he maintain
exactly
that level of commitment?
You might be slowing down, and motivation.
Yeah,
is
and
a factor.
especially, and also like he's with Team Alpha Male, but he trains with Dwayne Ludwig at Muscle Farm.
Right.
And well, sorry, not like at Muscle Farm because technically that's like Lester Bowling and whatever.
Right.
With TJ Dillashaw, but that's like the whole question is like, can you keep that fire alive? Because like you said, it takes one bad night and then like who knows what might happen.
Exactly, man. So, all right, man. I think that's almost, we're almost at the end. We're gonna wrap it up. I think we're pretty good. Is there anything you want to share, like as a last bit to whatever? Anybody you want to give a shout out to? Anybody you want to talk to anybody? You want to like say any final thing? Like, what is it?
I think like there's one thing I would like to say. Like, I guess like obviously, end this on like the like maybe on a controversial subject.
Okay.
It's like
everybody does roids.
Well, that's a no question. Like I think like everybody knows everybody in jiu-jitsu does roids. On a high level.
Do your opponents do roids?
I don't think so, but it's possible.
Do all the people that you lost to do roids?
No. Because a lot of normal people do. But no, because I think like everybody knows, and I think like people have to understand this too, and that's why I want to talk about this in the sense that because hobbyists look at these guys like Leandro Lo and like whatever like I wouldn't say like
I just saw a picture of Buchecha.
Yeah.
What the hell? I was like, how's that guy not on roids?
but my point is like everybody's on roids for various reasons. Like in Brazil, it's actually cheaper than protein.
Yeah.
But my point is like you can't compare yourself to that. Like
right.
I make a lot of fun about the jiu-jitsu lifestyle. Like everybody knows me.
Right.
But the jiu-jitsu lifestyle is a pretty like fun thing, and only like it's a pretty interesting thing in the sense that it binds a lot of people together, and it. Wherever I travel, I'm like, yo, where can I roll? It's a cool brotherhood.
Yeah.
But I think people people have to understand, like these guys who do it full time.
Yeah.
Like, let's be real. Like they're on roids, they're training full time. Like you can't beat yourself up about it. Mm-hmm. Like you're not at that level. And not only that, it's like it's impressive. But trust me, if you're on roids, you'd be pretty impressive too. Like, to be honest, like people don't understand. The big advantage of roids, yes, there's strength with that, but it's you can train all the time.
Yeah.
It's like the recovery period, and all your injuries are like nice and healed up. And what I really wanted to say is that
damn, bro, then juice, bro.
Yeah,
I'll give you a TUE exception. I'll give you exception. You won't be booted from Dynasty. You can roid if you want.
Well,
I'm kidding.
Unless I get you pay for my endocrinologist.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Sign it up. Insurance. Let's do it.
All right, no problem. Dynasty program.
Yeah, man. New athlete program. Like screw it. Let's put everybody on roids.
Yeah. So the what I wanted to put out is like the people who make jiu-jitsu great. It's actually not the competitors and like all those dudes who do like Pan Am, IBJJF champions. Like, stop putting them on a pedestal. Like, they don't have real jobs. Like, this isn't brain surgery, guys. It's just a sport.
Right.
It's like the reason why those people can do that full time is because you guys sign up for IBJJF tournaments. You pay for their lifestyle. You pay for the seminars. You pay for the gear. You buy the content online. Like, honestly, you guys are the hero. The community is the real hero and, like, who should get the love. Like, all these guys who compete, like, all respect to them and their skills. But, man, it's just jiu-jitsu. Let's calm down. And I think that's what I'm trying to say is, like, because the problem is, like, martial arts, and I think you know that too, you come from a TMA background, there's a bit too much hero cult worship. Like oh, he's so good, he's like like blah blah blah. I'm like, yo, man, it's just a sport. Like you're the whole your sensei, your master, whatever, yo, he's just a guy with a black belt. Guess what, you have a normal job too. Like you pay a mortgage, whatever. It doesn't give him like ultimate wisdom. He might be a black belt on the mats, but maybe not off the mats. And I think that's like a dangerous trend I'm starting to see in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that's taking that TMA approach. The biggest thing is like the whole Crianche thing. I'm like, yo, you're the paying customer. like you have the rights to just calm the fuck down. Like, you know, like I see a lot of that kind of like mentality, and I make fun of that.
You're talking about BJJ cults.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
let's put everybody on blast then. Okay, who's a cult? Lloyd Irvin.
Well, I think that that's hard to deny, even though I did enjoy like Lloyd Irvin's competition team.
Sure.
And I think that like, well, there's a lot of reprehensible things in his past and the way he's coming SEO. I'm gonna put it straight out there, man. Like the Brazilians were straight up afraid of him.
Yeah.
Like the fact that he was Black American, blowing up with that. Don't get me wrong, I don't really believe in that kind of marketing.
Right.
But the whole MMA masterminds, like Young Millionaire, like, man, his team was becoming an IBJJ powerhouse and was starting to upset the structure. Man, I don't know if people remember, but back during IBJJF days, man, they were starting to make some serious noise.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like starting to bully the Brazilians like on their own ground. Because I'm sorry, man, everybody knows the fucking like IBJJF and the way it's run, it's not run the right way. It's run for profit. So like you'll have a lot of like bias and all that stuff when referees, they try to do best they can, but it's normal in the culture, like the way it's done, that you have a natural, like we were talking, selection bias.
Right.
But like the reason so much heat they got on him was because he was American, Black, and really loud and all that marketing, and obviously it was scummy. But my point is, I'll give you an example, man. You know how many freaking sex offenders, like an organization, like, you know, like other Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu academies have been convicted of, and huge academies, but they don't go like, oh my god, this X organization like is like about rapists,
right?
You know what I mean? Like, and don't get, and I'm not condoning anything that Lloyd Irvin like is doing at all. I'm just saying like.
So you're saying there's a lot of Brazilians that are like criminals and stuff like that. That's what you're saying, right?
No, I'm not saying Brazilian criminals. My point is like there are people who are convicted of those crimes in other organizations, but people don't paint them as a broad stroke. You know, like, and my point is there's a lot of like groupthink that goes on in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and that's just one thing I'm saying. And I'm not defending Lloyd Irvin because I think that like what he did after the fact, like of those controversies, is actually the most reprehensible part. But my point is like the whole like we're all holier than thou, like in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. There's a lot of that going on. Like it's kind of it's like the virtue signaling thing. Like that's like I have a huge problem against, and that's the thing of the groupthink of the cults. It's because like, well, my black belt says this, so we're like the best. Oh, my instructor from Brazil, like, you know, like our lineage from Brazil. I'm like, man, let's calm the fuck down here. Like it's just Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can agree with that. I mean, you know, cults are not healthy, right? It, you know, breeds the wrong kind of mentality. You know, groupthink, that type of thing. To even damn. You brought up something really good, and now I forgot what I was gonna say because it was really good. But you know what? Let's just end it off there because you know it's probably gonna go off into a tangent. And you're gonna talk about all this other stuff now. So it was really great having An Khoi Vu here. And actually, before we end, just this real quick thing because we do this every episode. We ask you what your Asian name is, and if you can break it down for us, what it means. Do you know what it means?
Yeah. So my last name is Vu. So like in Chinese and Vietnamese, like the way you actually like when you say like what's your name, it's like it's Vu An Khoi. So it's like your first name in like Western actually comes after your last name.
Right.
So Vu is like a last name, whatever. But An is like a prefix. It means the or a, like, you know, like whatever. And Quoc means like in how can I say, it's like the smart one is like not exact. It's more like the canny one. Like he's canny.
Okay.
So intelligent, like, you know, like kind of sneaky. Like that's like. But like it means like canny. Like he's smart like a fox. Like.
All right, man. So you the canny one. You the sly one.
Well, I don't know about that, considering like I just put everybody on blast. And, like, but
no, man, it's all good. Maybe a new nickname for you, possibly. But hey, thank you for dropping by, Vu An Khoi, and really pleasure to have you on the Dynasty podcast, talk about all things jiu-jitsu. And hey, best of luck on everything. You know, all your competitions coming up. You know, super fight, everything like that. Kill it, and yeah, obviously you'll be flying out there in Dynasty colors and all that crazy Dynasty gear. And yeah, man, rep hard and hope for the victories, man.
Perfect. Thank you.
Don't lose so much. You gotta win more. Perfect, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.